The Middle Ages were not a fairy tale. They were a relentless battle against filth, hunger, and the bitter cold. For the average peasant, the day began before the sun and ended only when the body could no longer move. Fresh water was a luxury. Most drank ale, as the rivers were often a source of sickness and death. Survival meant backbreaking labor. From dawn until dusk, your entire life belonged to the land. Nutrition was a gamble. A simple bad harvest meant your family would face the slow agony of starvation. Fear of the divine was the only law. The church promised heaven, but for many, life felt like hell. Invisible enemies lurked in every corner. In the crowded hovels, disease was a shadow that followed you from birth. You owned nothing. Everything you produced went to the Lord who watched from his unyielding stone fortress. The air was thick with the smell of waste and rot. Life was cheap, and the plague was always one breath away. As darkness falls, the world turns silent. In the Middle Ages, the night belonged to the wolves and the lawless. Privacy did not exist. You shared your single room with your entire family and your livestock, their warmth being your only heater. Your diet was a repetitive cycle of pottage and hard black bread, often filled with grit that ground your teeth to the bone. Water was a gamble with death. You drank thick, weak ale from sunrise to sunset, the only way to stay hydrated safely. Hunting was often illegal on the Lord's land, but hunger forced you into the frozen woods, risking your life for a single meal. Work was divided by survival. Men broke their backs in the fields, while women battled the elements to keep the household from collapsing. Your bed was nothing more than a pile of rotting straw, infested with lice and fleas that fed on you throughout the night. With no chimneys, the air you breathed was a thick soup of soot and smoke, slowly rotting your lungs from the inside out. In winter, the walls offered little protection. Ice would form on the inside of your home, and many simply did not wake up the next morning. Every meal came from the same pot. A thin, tasteless pottage was often the only thing keeping your family from total starvation. Soap was a rarity. Dirt and bacteria were your constant companions, turning every minor cut into a potential death sentence. Most of what you grew never reached your table. The Lord took his share first, leaving you with nothing but dust. In the height of summer, the sun was as deadly as the winter. Many collapsed in the furrows, their hearts giving out under the relentless heat. There were no dentists. The village barber dealt with pain by inflicting more, using rusted tools and no numbing agents. Death was a frequent visitor. Half of all children never saw their 10th birthday, buried in the same mud they spent their lives tilling. When science failed and the Lord took everything, only faith remained. A desperate plea for a mercy that rarely came. Justice was a public spectacle designed to break the spirit. For a minor theft, the law offered only shame and physical agony. When the grain ran out, the forest was your only hope. But one wrong choice of a berry or mushroom could end your family's struggle forever. Beyond the village fences, the world was a kingdom of monsters. At night, the line between man and prey became invisible. Salt was worth more than gold. Without it, you could not preserve food for the winter, making it a luxury that determined who lived and who starved. Rest was never long enough. The blacksmith was the heartbeat of the village. Without his fire and hammer, there were no tools for the field and no weapons for defense. You built monuments you would never enter. Every stone of the Lord's castle was laid with the sweat and blood of those who lived in hovels. Fire was the ultimate predator. In a world of wood and straw, a single stray spark could erase an entire village in a matter of hours. Every piece of clothing was a labor of months. Women spent their few moments of rest spinning and weaving, battling the endless bite of the cold. News from the outside world came slowly, carried by those brave or desperate enough to travel the bandit-infested roads between settlements. When the rain stopped, the earth turned to stone. In the Middle Ages, a single dry season was a death sentence for the entire community. Hunger stripped away all dignity. When the grain silos were empty, people turned to grass and tree bark just to stop the gnawing pain in their stomachs. War did not always mean glorious battles. For the peasant, it meant watching your life's work vanish in flames as soldiers burned everything you needed to survive. To survive the winter and the taxman, you had to become a ghost. Anything found was anything lost. The law offered no protection from the ironclad men who took what they wanted. When the armies moved on, they left behind a silence more terrifying than the battle. A world where everything you built had turned to ash. Survival meant starting over with nothing. You scavenged through the bones of your past to find a future in the dirt. In the Middle Ages, youth was a fleeting dream. By 30, your body was broken, a map of every winter and every famine you had endured. Yet, life finds a way. In the mud and the ruins, the cycle begins again, driven by a primal will that refuses to be extinguished. Every day was a victory. In a world designed to kill you, simply reaching the next sunset was the ultimate triumph of the human spirit. We left our marks not in books, but in the very stones of the earth. Silent witnesses to a struggle that the world has long forgotten. Every generation was a bridge. We endured the cold so that those who came after us might one day find the warmth. History is written by the victors, but it was built by the survivors. We were the primal struggle. In the end, we are all just embers in the dark. But for one brief moment, we burned brighter than the stars. This was the Middle Ages. This was Primal Struggle. Subscribe to witness the journey through time.